All right, and welcome to your third lesson at the piano. So in this video, we are going to learn how to read music for the right hand. So let's start with what reading music means, what it tells us, and everything like that. So if you've never seen this before, this is called a staff. A staff is 5 lines in 4 spaces, right? So here's our 5 lines, here's our 4 spaces right here. So now every single note on the piano will belong somewhere on the staff. So right now we're only dealing with the right hand. The way we can tell we're dealing with the right hand is for this symbol right here. We call this a treble clef. So music on the treble clef will go from the note middle C and higher. So any note middle C and higher will be written on the treble clef. So every note on the piano has a spot on the staff. A note could either be written on a line or a space. Now obviously, right, with only 5 lines and 4 spaces, we can only fit 9 notes on the staff, but there's way more than 9 notes. So sometimes when you're reading music, music can be written above the staff or below the staff using what we call ledger lines. So what ledger lines do is we just draw our own little line to show where a note is going. So for example, the note middle C, which is right here, the C that's in the middle of the piano, is actually not on the staff, it's one ledger line under the staff. So the note middle C will have a line like this, and then the note going around that line, just like that. So anytime you see a note on the treble clef staff that is below the staff and has the line coming through it, is the note middle C. So middle C in the treble clef is denoted by that. Now as we go up the staff, right, so as we go from a line to a space, going this way, we're going up the piano, so going in alphabetical order. So if this is C, as we go up, the next note wouldn't be on the line, right? Because the staff goes line space. The next note would actually sit underneath the first line, just like this, right? So it would actually sit right underneath the line, and that will be the note D. Simple enough, right? We go from C up to D. Now we can keep going up. So the next note, right, this was a line, this is a space, so the next will now be on the first line. So now we draw a note on the first line. This is the note, as you probably guessed it, E, which is this E, right? So it's important to note, right, that when we're saying this note is C, this note is D, this note is E on the treble clef, it's not any C or D, it's specifically this note is middle C, this note here is this D right here above middle C, this note is the E right in that same area. Now let's keep going up 2 more notes. We'll just learn the first 5 notes. Now we just went line, space, line, so the next will be in the space there. So the note that is in the first space, I'm sure you can guess it, is F. That F right there. So now let's go up 1 more note to the note on the second line. And as I'm sure you can guess it, there's our note G. So these are the first 5 notes on the treble clef. So anytime you're reading music and you see a note that looks like this, got 1 line coming through it and it's below the staff, that's the note middle C. You see a note here written right underneath the first line where the top of the note is barely touching that line, but it's not through the note like this one, it's just underneath it, and it doesn't have a line coming through it. That's our note D. We move on a little bit, right, to that first line of the staff, the bottom line of the staff, that's our note E. We move up 1 more into that first space, there's F. We move up 1 more time onto that second line of the staff, and that's our note G. So those are the first 5 notes of the treble clef. So when we're reading music, we see that, right? The staff tells us what note we're playing. It tells us that by drawing the note on a certain line or space. So each line or space on the staff is pointing to a specific note on the piano. Now the last thing we'll learn about today, I'll flip the page here, is about the rhythms of the notes, right? So music, when we read music, it tells us 2 different things. It tells us, 1, what note we need to play, and then 2, it tells us how long we need to hold that note down for. So the way we determine how long we need to hold the note down for is how the note looks. So the 2 notes we're going to talk about today are what we call quarter notes and half notes. So a quarter note is a note that has a circle like that with a line either coming up the right side or down the left side. It will have one or the other. And then the other important thing about a quarter note is that it's colored in. It is a black circle, right? So it'll be, I'm going to color this as best as I can for you to get the point here, but this would be a quarter note because it is a colored circle with a line coming up, right? Like I said, it doesn't matter if the line's on the right side coming up or on the left side coming down. It is a quarter note. So this right here is a quarter, excuse my handwriting here, quarter note, and it equals 1 beat. Now you may be asking yourself, what does it mean for 1 beat? Is this 1 beat? Is this 1 beat? Is that 1 beat? Well, all beats are relative depending on your tempo. So now a tempo is determined by how fast you go. So we can use something called a metronome. A metronome sets the tempo for us, right? If you're new to music and you don't already know how to count in tempo, it's very wise to use a metronome. So I'm going to set my metronome to a speed of 60. We use the word BPM, which stands for beats per minute, meaning there will be 60 little clicks within a minute, right? We can choose a speed of 60, we can choose a speed of 90, 120, depending on what the song calls for. So each click would be considered 1 beat, right? So if I play a bunch of notes here, I play them each with the click of the metronome so that I'm playing with tempo. These are all quarter notes because they're all holding for 1 click. So now the next note we'll learn about is called a half note. Looks very similar to a quarter note. The only difference is that the note is not colored in. In a half note is equal to 2 beats. So it holds for twice as long as a quarter note. So we'll turn our metronome back on. Now a half note will hold like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So those are half notes. So when you're reading music, right, maybe we're going to play something like this. Maybe the C will be a quarter note, like that. Maybe the D will be a half note, and so on. So if I was to play, let's just say I'm just playing the notes C, D, and E here. The note C will be a quarter note, which is 1 beat, right? The note D will be a half note, which is 2 beats. And the note E will be another quarter note, right, which is 1 beat. So we'll ignore the notes F and G for now. So if I turn on my metronome, right, it's telling us to play the note C as a quarter note, D as a half note, and E as a quarter note. So if I played this, it would go like this. 1, 1, 2, 1, right? I held this note down, the C, for 1 beat, the D for 2 beats, and the E for 1 beat. So now with the metronome, like I said, we don't always go at a speed of what I have at 60. Maybe you want to play it at a speed of 90 beats per minute, let's say. So now you'll notice there's still the same 4 clicks. They're still all even. The difference is now we're just at a faster tempo. The same rules apply. Each click is still worth 1 beat. So if I play the C for 1 beat, the D for 2 beats, and the E for 1 beat, it would go like this. Just like that. And you could choose any speed. Obviously, it depends on the song. Right now, this is a random exercise. So here's a speed of 120 beats per minute. Same thing. Each click is still worth 1 beat. So just like that. So that is all for today's lesson. We just learned about the location of the first 5 notes on the staff, C, D, E, F, G. And then we learned about our 2 different types of notes that we have so far. Our quarter notes, which are worth 1 beat, and our half notes, which are worth 2 beats. So be sure to download the page in the description. It's free, and it'll be some music that you can read that uses quarter notes, half notes, and only uses these first 5 notes so you can get used to reading some music for the right hand. All right, that is all for today. I will see you in the next lesson for day number 4.